Everyone needs a hobby, and I'm no different from anyone else, I guess. Well, we're all unique in our own special way, but we all have lots of similarities, don't we? And one of those similarities are our need to have hobbies. Our need to do things or to fill our spare time with something that interests us, something we're passionate about. So Madrid is my hobby because I've been here, lived here for almost 20 years, not quite. But the story goes back longer than that, way back, in fact. What's your hobby? A city for a hobby? Isn't that a little strange? Well, maybe, sure, I suppose. Most people prefer, I don't know, chess, board games, sitting on the sofa for hours watching Netflix movies, I guess. Everyone's different. Everyone has their interests. And mine happens to be Madrid, Spain. Hello and welcome, Hispanophiles and Madridphiles. There, I just invented 2 new words. Look them up. They won't find them because they're not in the dictionary. But one day they might be. Anyway, so I'm Madrid man, but you can call me Scott if you like, if you prefer. I've been passionate about Madrid for, a long time. A long time. I guess it goes back to my high school days, back in the 80s. So I'm a child of the 60s, born in the mid-60s. And from a small town in the Midwest, just below the Great Lakes, the United States. In case you hadn't guessed that from my accent. Right now I'm walking through the Retiro Park on a Sunday in mid-February. And boy, are there a lot of people out here. Wow. We got dogs, we got runners, we got walkers, we got birds, we have parakeets in the trees. They're an invasive species. Anyway, it goes back to my high school days, I suppose, when I took 2 years of high school Spanish because we had to take a language, just had to. They required us to take, I think, 3 years of a foreign language. I chose French for 1 year, didn't like it too much, sorry. And 2 years of Spanish, that I liked quite a bit. I was part of the Spanish club. We've got a guy back here running with his dog. Dog is barking. A guy is talking on his telephone while he's running. So that's probably his hobby, I imagine. He's walking his dog and he's talking to friends. And that's cool. That's cool. Everybody needs a hobby that they're passionate about, something that fills their time, once again. Going back. So I had 2 years of high school Spanish. I enjoyed it quite a lot. Our Spanish club traveled to Mexico twice, 2 summers in a row. Boy, was that hot. We went to Mexico City, Tasco, and a few other places, a few other villages, which were quite nice. So we were forced to use our Spanish, our very low-level Spanish, talking to people at restaurants, the cleaning staff, I guess. Well, we did what we had to do, after all. And then, once I got to college, Midwestern State School, I also had to take some foreign languages. So I chose Spanish once again, naturally, because I had some experience. My level wasn't really good, but that's what you get from high school foreign languages, right? After all. So I took my 20 credit hours, my 4 classes of Spanish, and I got better and better. The teacher was really good. I liked her a lot. She wasn't Spanish. Well, I think she had Spanish roots. That is, roots from Spain. So she had some insight. She'd been to Spain. She forced us to read books written about Spain, not in Spanish, thank goodness, but forced us to read books about Spain. Luckily, maybe not luckily, she encouraged us to read Don Quixote, for example, Don Quixote. And I think I started it, but I got distracted with, you know, things that you get distracted with in college. You know what those things are. And I put it down. But since, I picked it back up. And, well, it's really interesting. And the characters, of course. Anyway, so I took my 4 classes, 20 credit hours in Spanish, Spanish language, Spanish literature, I also took that. Spanish history, I took that. And so all of these things accumulated into an interest, which later became a passion. So, after graduating, and after moving into the world, started working in my degree, I was, I guess, quite happy. I guess, you know, had a normal life. Until the day came in the year 1993. 1993, that's right. And what happened in 1993? Well, my whole life changed in 1993. My whole life changed in 1993. What could have happened? Well, some tragic event? No. Oh my goodness, there's a big swarm of people running right towards me. So, oh my goodness, coming and going. Yikes. Yeah, boy. Anyway, so that's what you get on a Sunday morning in the Retiro Park. You get lots of people doing lots of things. Walking dogs. There's a dog park. Look at that. It's a dog park. Isn't that nice? Anyway, so back to my story. Back to my story. You have your story about your passions, that's for sure. And I'd like to hear about them. Let me know what your passions are, or your hobbies, in the comment section, if you please. So, what happened to me in 1993? Something very significant. Extremely significant. Well, I had a neighbor, she was Colombian. There you go. Dogs being walked without their leashes. That's one of my pet peeves, I have to say. Anyway, 1993. Sure, I had a Colombian neighbor, and her English was not very good. My Spanish wasn't very good, okay? But she was going to an academy to improve her English. And one day she had a problem at the bank. She lost her ATM card. She put in the PIN number incorrectly, I guess, 3 times, 4 times, whatever. And the machine ate her card. So she had a problem. Obviously, she had a problem. I don't know if you can hear those parakeets squawking away up there in the trees. Anyway, so she had a problem and she needed me. I was her friend, I was her neighbor. So she asked me to go to the bank with her to retrieve her ATM card. And being the nice guy that I am, and I had free time, and she was a nice person. She was a good friend of mine. So I went with her to the bank. I agreed to go with her to the bank. But when she came to my door to pick me up in her car, she came with a friend. The friend was a classmate from the same English academy. And so this friend had a higher level of English than my Colombian neighbor did. And I, of course, was a native English speaker from the United States, living there, working there, etc., etc. And my level of Spanish was decent. So among the 3 of us, we were able to get her card back. But before all that, when she knocked on my door, and I opened it, and I saw this lovely woman. She told me her name. She said she was from Spain, and very attractive, very attractive. A little older than me, but not too much. A few years older than me. So, I saw fireworks, you could say. I really did. So I was hooked from the first moment. So we went to the bank, we retrieved the card, and the Colombian woman gifted us or thanked us with lunch at a Mexican restaurant. Okay. So my So the Spanish woman, I almost gave away the the tip there. The Spanish woman, being Spanish, didn't really like spicy food. So she wasn't very happy at the Mexican restaurant. I love Mexican food because I'm an American, and hey, I just do, right? So we went there, we had lunch, and we started talking, and then another day we got together. We went out to another dinner of her choosing. And, well, one thing led to another, and we had a nice little, summer romance. Actually, I think it was in September of 1993, it was. So we had a nice little September romance, which was wonderful. And then we said our goodbyes, and she went back to Spain because she had her job there. Of course, she went back to Spain because, hey, she was there just for a few months studying English to improve her English. And she had to go back to her job. She is a teacher. She was a teacher. She is a teacher. Small children, 9, 10-year-olds. And she had her family to kind of take care of because they were elderly. So she had that responsibility. And, well, she just couldn't stay, obviously. I mean, you can't stay after, a few weeks, a month, after meeting some stranger, it's just not feasible. Just not feasible. So she went back. We said our sad goodbyes, never thinking that we would see each other again. And then, well, she made first contact after, I think, a month. And wow, was I happy to hear from her. And then, from there, we started writing letters back and forth, because back in that day, international phone calls were really expensive. Really expensive. So we started writing letters back and forth. Let's see, where am I going? Okay, sorry. So we started writing letters back and forth. And, just kind of things that we're doing during the day, our life, our lifestyles, some, well, they weren't too syrupy sweet, but, they were nice. Anyway, the relationship progressed, and then after a couple years of just this, of not seeing each other, she invited me to come to Madrid to spend Holy Week, Easter week, with her and her family. I thought, wow, that's really nice, that's really sweet. So I took advantage, and I went to visit her for a whole month in Easter week, Holy Week. And we had a great time, as you can imagine. And the relationship blossomed. We traveled around, and I saw Spain for the first time. And so I was hooked not only on her, but also on Spain. And that's where it all began. So she lives and works here in Madrid. I came back to visit her on 4 or 5 other occasions. I came back in 97, 98, 99, and 2000, 2002. And then in 2005, I came back my last time, my final time, and we got married. So we're happily married still to this day, almost 20 years later. I just celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary a few months ago. So we're very happy. And well, we have our flat. We still have our jobs. That's another story. So at the time, my hobbies included, for example, exercising. We're talking in the early 90s, right? When I was a young buck, let's say. Well, I was exercising. I was meeting some friends, playing some video games. Boy, those video games were really bad back in the early 90s compared to what we have today. And, well, that was it, essentially. I did a lot of writing. I was doing like blogging before blogging was a thing. Did a lot of writing. And so after going to Madrid that first time and taking loads of photos, I took video also with a video camera, one of these large VHS cameras that you put on your shoulder, right? And so I took video and lots of photos, and I kept journals, which you can still find online if you're at all interested, and wrote about my experiences. So I created a website, MadridMan.com. It's still up. It's extremely dormant. I won't say dead, but it's dormant, okay? And, I started creating this website as my hobby at that time, okay? Including my photos, information, places to visit, things like that. And over the years, keep in mind this is now 1996, right? The year after I came to Madrid for the first time. And so that became my hobby. Madrid became my hobby. And as hobbies do, as they evolve, they become our passions. So I created this website, came back to Madrid several times, collected more information, more experiences, wrote more blogs, took more photos, took more videos, had more, and this interest became my hobby, really, my profession. In fact, my hobby became my profession, something that I loved doing. And so I did it for a number of years. Sorry, I'm in the shade here. I did that for a number of years, and it did quite well. In fact, I had advertisers, I was self-employed, everything was going great, really until 2008, when the international, worldwide financial crash occurred. So that changed everything, and I had to find another way to make a living, essentially, right? And my wife, being in education, she said, "Hey, Madrid Man." No, she didn't call me Madrid Man. She called me Scott. "Hey, Scott, I think it's time for you to look for another way of making a living." So I said, yeah, maybe you're right. So she got me into education, or at least into the idea of education. So I did that, and that's what I've been doing for the last, you could say about 10 years or so, I suppose. Last 10 years. Last 9 years hard. I was giving private classes to professionals, and that went quite well. Then I started preparing people for Cambridge exams. That went well. And then I got in with the school. And now I'm an official full-time English teacher. So that's where I am right now. But getting up in age, I'm still relatively young, mind you. Getting up in age, we've got kids skating and stuff like that. Okay, I want to be sure I don't get them on video. Okay, so I'm going to tilt up just a little bit until they get past. They're all skating in, I guess they're skating, I don't know, groups, I suppose. And I'm walking right across their pylons that they skate around. Anyway, as I was saying. So, I got into education, and, I kind of had to put my hobby, my passion, in a way, on hold. I guess you could say, on hold, in a manner of speaking. And people are doing exercises. So, I put my passion, my hobby, really on hold for a while, but now that I'm getting older, and my wife being a bit older than I am, starting to think, you know what? Once I retire, I'm going to need a hobby. Right? Once I retire, once I have more time, those are the people over there exercising right there, here in the Retiro Park. I'm going to need a hobby. And my wife is going to be retiring relatively soon, in the next few years. So what am I going to do? What are we going to do? So the question of filling our time, first of all, of course, creating hobbies, And I thought, what am I going to do? What can I do for a hobby after I retire, or even to get kick-started before I retire? So it didn't take me very long, to be perfectly honest. It didn't take me long at all to come to this conclusion. I thought, you know what? I'm still passionate about Madrid. Since I put MadridMan.com kind of to bed, to sleep for a few years, I thought, you know what? If I'm retired, why not wake him up? Hey man, let's get back to work. Let's get back to doing stuff. And I've never lost my passion for Madrid, that's for darn sure. Never, ever. I still love it. Love everything. Well, don't love everything about it. Don't love everything about it because, well, no place is perfect. That's for darn sure. No matter where you live or work in the world, no place is perfect. And Madrid is the same. But I would say there's more pluses than minuses. Oh, far more pluses than minuses. And that's why I'm still happy being here. What's going on over here? Let's check it out. This is like just a second. You just saw my face close up. Let's see. What's going on here? Let's see if we can see that. Can we see that? Yeah, we can see a little bit of that. Okay. I think it's a rose garden, to be honest. Anywho. So, we're thinking, I still have this passion for Madrid. I still love Spain. I love being here. I love working here. Every day is an adventure. Every day. There's always something new. Part of that adventure, of course, is the interactions with people, that's for sure. The language, the difficulties with languages, the miscommunications. My wife and I have miscommunications all the time. Her English is much better than my Spanish, mind you, okay? So that helps. And people always ask me, so MadridMan or Scott, at home, what language do you talk to each other in? Is it English or is it in Spanish? And I was kind of, well, the truth is, at the very beginning, because her English was much better than my Spanish, we spoke more English than Spanish at home. So probably 80%, 85% English and 15% in Spanish. In Spanish, right. So very little Spanish was spoken. But over the years, as my Spanish level has improved, well, we speak, I think, 80% Spanish now and 20% English. That's the general rule. But it seems that more often now, I speak to her at home in English, and she speaks to me in Spanish most of the time. And of course, when we have family over who don't speak any English, we have to speak in Spanish, clearly. And that's fine. That's more than fine. I'm comfortable speaking it. However, in a professional setting where I work, it's true that many people speak English because they're educators, and many of them tend to have a high-ish, medium, at least a medium level of English, which helps me a lot, of course. I always speak to them in English, but some of them don't speak any English whatsoever, and that's fine. So I have to speak with them in Spanish. Anyway, so that's my story, you could say. I've been walking here through the Retiro Park, and let me look at my notes real quick because there were a couple other things I wanted to mention. I think I have most of the time. I think I've mentioned most of these things. Okay. Okay. It's a beautiful day here in the Retiro Park. I'd like to touch on for a moment the idea of community So I'm an American living in Madrid. I'm an American living and working in Madrid, in fact. And picking up roots and moving to a different country, to a different continent, is no easy task for anyone. Well, some people I suppose are more capable of doing it than others. Some people are better at languages. Some people are better at adapting to different situations than others. Oh, isn't that cute? Are better at adapting to situations than others. And I essentially started working and speaking in Spain, speaking Spanish and working in Spain, in Madrid, after I was 40 years old, okay? So, well, at 40 years old. In fact, I was at 40 years old when I moved here. And so that was no easy task. In fact, it was quite stressful just going to the supermarket and interacting with the shopkeepers community. So what some expats often do, and I've done it to some degree, to be perfectly honest, but I put it off for a decade, is that what a lot of expats do is they come to Spain and they feel this sense of kind of alienation, I guess. And so I'm going to sit down here for a moment. This is quite nice. Yep. Okay. That's good. That feels good. They have this sense of alienation because, well, they're away from their families, they're away from their country, away from their way of life, for sure. And they need to correct that, if you will. They need to correct that. So, because they can't take it anymore, I suppose. I don't know. Well, everyone has their own reasons, that's for sure. So people start to create these communities of expats, which for years and years and years I avoided. I didn't want to be part of any expat groups. I didn't want to know any Americans. I didn't want to speak with anyone in English necessarily. So for years, for a decade, I suppose. And my wife kept encouraging me, you know what, you should meet some Americans, get together, share your complaints or interests, complaints about Spain or Spaniards. And so I started to do that. I was hosting these kind of exchanges, right, with Spaniards and Americans. We have some police on parade going down the street there in the Retiro Park. You can maybe hear their sirens. Anyway, so I started to kind of meet and hang out with some expats, some British people, in fact. There were some British people and some Irish people. And, well, it was interesting, it was fun. But the vast majority of my time was me surrounded by non-English speakers, okay. And later on, now, I suppose, in the last few years, I've been thinking, well, I've been here for almost 20 years and I've enjoyed myself, and maybe it's time to create more of a community, right? To kind of go back to my past, go back to my roots, because it's true, I do miss the United States. I do. And I have to admit that even today, after almost 20 years, when I hear the national anthem, I get a little weepy-eyed, I have to say. So, back to the topic of community. I have been a member of, I've been the founder, I've been the administrator, and I've been a member of certain American-based Facebook groups. Okay, a couple of those are military groups. So here in Madrid, well, in Torrejón, in the outskirts of Madrid, there is an air base which is currently being used by Spaniards, by Spain. And for decades, until 1993, part of that base was occupied by the United States Air Force. So from the 50s, 1953 until 1993, more or less. And so we had Americans there on that base, and they only stayed for a few years, but we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of U.S. military people living and working there and having a good time. My goodness. So because of their exchange rate at that time, during those decades, the dollar was super strong as compared to the peseta here in Spain. And so these guys had, comparatively had a lot of money to spend. And Spain, even then, and even now to some degree, was a very cheap country to live, to shop, to consume, as compared to the rest of Europe. And definitely as compared to the United States. So these U.S. military, Air Force people, they would go to the bars, the restaurants, and they would spend, just like spend, have a great time. And and some of the older bartenders there downtown Madrid, they would tell me some stories about American servicemen and women, how they would be dancing on the tables and they'd be buying rounds of drinks for everybody in the bar and having a great time. So they had quite a reputation. And two of these face groups that I'm a member of, I was never in the military, mind you. I was never in the military. But they welcomed me in there because, in part, well, they could see my passion for Madrid. And I was happy to be the person on site. To answer their questions, to help them relive their memories, and, well, just to help recreate that community that they had here in Madrid, Spain. To at least give them, Americans, now living in the United States, many of them are retired, but not all of them, to give them a sense of, belonging in a way, that there is an American, more or less their age, still living in Madrid, because a lot of those people had such wonderful experiences that they've become extremely passionate about Madrid and Spain, because they traveled all over and they met people. It's true, most of them didn't speak any Spanish, okay? But they had a wonderful time, and they met people with whom they could communicate. And they did this and they did that, all the typical Spanish things, the flamenco, the bullfights, also restaurants, drinking, partying, all that stuff. So, but now they're more or less retired, most of them, and they would sometimes they share old photos they took in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of their experiences here in Madrid, Spain. And well, I'm just happy to help them relive those memories in a way. Sometimes they ask me to take photos of this place or that place, and I do, and I post it on the Facebook page. But it's been a pleasure to be part of their community. And I'd like to be a part of a new community, not only for them, including them, of course, but also for the rest of you who weren't in the military, who weren't stationed here, but who visited here, or maybe you lived here, or you had a friend here whom you visited and you had wonderful experiences. Well, I'd like to be that point of reference here in Madrid, Spain, for you. So I'm Madrid Man. Make me that reference. Let's create this community and build it. And in the future, my intention is to not only share my experiences, but also to visit places and maybe give a little bit of history about those places, but more the things that we see, the things that we can do here in present day Madrid. So come along with me and we'll do that together. So this is Madrid Man, or Scott. This is Madrid Man signing off. So ciao for now y hasta la próxima. As many of you probably know, one of America's greatest authors, Ernest Hemingway, spent a lot of time in Spain. A lot of time in Spain in general, and a lot of time in Madrid in particular. So while he was here, or after he left, I suppose, well, while he was here also, he wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls. he wrote The Sun Also Rises, which is one of my favorite books of all time because a lot of it takes place in Madrid, Spain. And since he spent a lot of time here, and he was an American, and he had a lot of money, he also frequented a lot of Madrid's bars and restaurants. So you might know, or you might not know, that, well, Hemingway liked to drink, okay? He liked his drink every now and then, or more often than now and then. And so he visited a lot of the old taverns in Madrid. And some of those taverns, even today, have photos of him with the bartenders in that establishment, or there are signs that say, Hemingway drank here, Hemingway ate here, something like that. So that has happened, and a lot of people can see that and have their photo taken with the photo of Hemingway, in fact. So that's pretty cool. And so sometimes I go into a bar, I see those photos, I think, hey, I'm walking on the same floor that Ernest Hemingway walked on. I'm drinking at the same bar that Ernest Hemingway drank at. And it gives me, I don't know, makes me feel good. Gives me a little connection to the United States right here in Madrid, Spain.